Before today's video, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on the latest videos. If you want to see a case or topic covered by Paranormally Listed, then go to criminallylisted.com and fill out the questionnaire under the Suggest a Case tab. Little Red Riding Hood and Hansel and Gretel know better than anyone that forests are scary and can lead to danger. Whether it's a wolf or a witch, nothing good comes from venturing into the woods, especially at night. The three forests on this list will give any fairy tale forest a run for its money. Number 3. Randolph Woods. Randolph is a small town in southern Maine. Separating two residential areas in the town is Randolph Woods. The old narrow gauge trail cuts through Randolph Woods. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, the trail was a railroad that was 5 miles long and transported veterans and coal to Togus Hospital. It was called the Keenback Central Railroad, and the name Old Narrow Gauge Trail comes from the fact that Keenback Central train was referred to as a narrow gauge, which is a model of train that is significantly smaller than a traditional full-size train. You would think that perhaps this forest is haunted by veterans due to its proximity to the hospital, but it seems that the main ghost that everyone talks about is Bicycle Larry. Many people believe it's the ghost of a man named Clarence Farrell. He got the nickname Bicycle Larry because he was rarely seen without his bike. Bicycle Larry was well known around the town and a frequent visitor to the area's soup kitchen. Often he was homeless, but sometimes he lived with a man named Norris Perry. Perry lived in a ramshackle trailer on the edge of the woods. Bicycle Larry was last seen in October 2004 on his bike in the woods. In November 2004, Larry's caseworker was wondering why Larry hadn't come to pick up his checks, so they alerted the authorities. An investigation was launched to figure out what happened to him. One person they talked to was 64-year-old Norris Perry. In the winter of 2004, Perry learned that he was the lead suspect in the case. Perry then called his sister and left a voicemail. In the voicemail, he confessed to killing Larry and putting his body in the brook in the woods behind his house. After leaving the voicemail, 64-year-old Norris Perry fatally overdosed on pills and alcohol. His dead body was found in the woods about 200 yards from the brook. The police searched the brook and the forest surrounding it for a month, but no trace of Larry Farrell or his bike were ever found. Several people have reported seeing Bicycle Larry's ghostly figure riding along the path. The forest has other paranormal activity. According to many ghost hunters, there's a high EVP rating in the forest. People have seen orbs floating and heard someone scream, "Get out!" People have also heard steam whistles, which is interesting because this used to be a railroad. There's also an area close to the water that is always dark. It doesn't matter how much light is there, it always remains dark. No wonder people have expressed dread upon entering the forest. Add the shadows and sounds of footsteps, it's easy to believe why they think someone is haunting the forest. Number 2. The Island of Dolls. The next forest on our list can be found south of Mexico City on an island between the canals of Xochimilco. The island is nicknamed the Island of the Dolls. This story can either be heartwarming or upsetting. You decide. The area's history is tragic in its own right, as it was one that the Aztec people had inhabited. Spaniard Hernan Cortez traveled to the area in 1518 and then returned a second time in 1521. Only this time he brought an army with him. It would seem that no soul was spared as they killed most of the Aztec population and 30,000 bodies were left in the canals. This has led to the question that perhaps the canals have formed a paranormal pathway. In the current era, the canals are fruitful areas, literally and figuratively. Some merchants sell flowers, fruits, and vegetables, and it is called the Floating Garden as a result of all this activity. The daytime period in the canals is alive, but it's a very different story at nighttime. Even those who live in the area won't venture out past dark. The reason is that they say some creatures live underground. These creatures are said to steal the lives and souls of people from above ground. However, what this forest is most known for is the dolls. The dolls weren't always there. Their presence is the singular work of Don Julian Santana Barrera, who moved to the island in the 1950s. He previously lived in Mexico City and was married with a family, but he wanted to be alone. One day he saw a young girl swimming with her sisters, and she drowned. While he tried to save her, he wasn't successful. This incident stayed with Barrera for the rest of his life, as he blamed himself for her death. Soon after the incident, he saw another body in the water in the same place where the first girl died, and he thought another girl was drowning. However, he discovered it was a doll once he reached the body. He figured it was likely the young girl's doll. He put the doll in a tree, and there were several theories for his reasoning behind this act. One is that he put the doll there out of respect for the young girl. The second is that he feared her spirit and placed the doll there to protect himself from her. The third theory is that he placed the doll there to protect the girl from demons. Regardless of his reasoning, he ended up continuing hanging up more and more dolls. He continued to do so because he felt she was haunting him and he wanted to keep her happy. He also felt guilty of not being able to rescue her from drowning. Barrera was so committed to hanging up the dolls that he would go to extreme lengths to acquire more dolls. Whether that meant trading some of his products or even looking for dolls in the garbage, he never stopped. The haunting manifested in hearing crying or footsteps near his home in the forest. He would also hear a girl say, "I want my doll." He said there was no way he mistook the sounds, and since he was a recluse, no one lived near him. Perhaps the strangest part of the story is that Barrera died in 2001 at the age of 80, about 50 years after he came to the island. His body was found by his nephew. Barrera had drowned in the water in the same place where the little girl had died. The dolls are still on the island. Many feel that they are possessed. Some people say they see the dolls open their eyes or move parts of their bodies. Others have said the dolls have even spoken to them or each other. Xochimilco became a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1987. Guinness World Records also named it the world's largest collection of haunted dolls. After Barrera's passing, the island became a tourist hub, with many interested in seeing the collection. So the story can be heartwarming, and that was the story of a man so overcome with grief that he found a way to honor a young girl who lost her life. Or the story can be that of a man who was so afraid of a young girl's spirit that he used broken down dolls from the trash to protect himself. The only other option is that perhaps Barrera was just really lonely. Some have argued that the inciting incident of the entire project, the drowning of the young girl, didn't even happen, and he just made up the story because he was so lonely, which is also a very sad story. Number 1. The Hoia Bacau Forest. Finally, our top haunted forest can be found in Romania. Specifically in Transylvania, close to the city of Cluj-Napoca, is the Hoia Bacau Forest. The forest is 55,000 years old and has been identified as the world's most haunted forest, and there are good reasons for that. There have been many reports of paranormal activity in the forest over decades, and these reports show no sign of slowing down. One of the earliest reports of paranormal activity in the forest comes from Alexandru Shift in the 1960s. He was a biologist who spent time in the forest in the 1950s and 1960s to study the strange trees which mysteriously grow crookedly. They grow in a clockwise direction. While Shift was there, he took pictures of what he thought were UFOs and said he felt an overwhelming feeling that he was being watched. This wouldn't be the last time someone saw a UFO in the forest. Emil Barnea, a military technician, also claims to have seen a UFO in the sky in 1968 while camping in the forest with his girlfriend and friends. He even took a photograph of it. The crooked trees have sparked interest in many academics, including Tibor Hartel, a professor at the Faculty of Environmental Science and Engineering at Cluj-Napoca. He argues that the strange manner in which the trees grow is a result of them being poorly cut previously, which causes them to grow weirdly. But some people have questioned whether the soil was radioactive. This question regarding the soil is particularly significant regarding the Poiana rotunda, an area of the forest that is a vegetation dead zone. Not only are there no trees in the area, but grass doesn't grow tall. It stays the same height without anyone going over it with a lawnmower. The question of why this particular area of the forest is a dead zone has mystified academics and nature experts. No one knows definitively what causes this issue. Some think it's connected to flying saucers. Adrian Patrut, a scientist, thought that perhaps this area was a gateway to another dimension. But those aren't the only strange experiences in this forest. Many who have entered have reported feeling a strange sensation, sometimes excitement, and other times curiosity and even paranoia. Others have experienced physical symptoms upon entering the forest. These symptoms range from feeling nauseous to having migraines to even finding unexplained scratches and bruises on their bodies. The forest has also been dubbed the Bermuda Triangle of Romania, as there have been 45 ghost sightings. They have ranged from hearing voices, whether laughing or screaming, from young girls to hearing deer and horses gallop in the forest, even though the forest doesn't house any deer or horses. Others have taken pictures only to find orbs in the image that they didn't see in person. Some have even seen disembodied heads. And we haven't even spoken about the people who entered the forest and never returned. One such person is also the namesake of the forest, Hoia Bacau. He was a shepherd, and over a century ago, he entered the forest with 200 sheep and was never seen again, and neither were the sheep. How could a man with so many sheep vanish without a trace? This is somewhat similar to a story of a young girl who was 5 years old at the time, but it has a twist ending. She entered the forest and wasn't seen or heard from for 5 years. However, and here's the plot twist, she re-emerged from the forest and was the same age as when she entered. She also had no clue where she was or what happened. Perhaps she didn't want to share what happened, but the fact that she didn't age a day is strange enough. The most shocking experience occurred in 1961, and it involved a group of people who had the same experience, and it was so severe that they were studied for a year afterwards. This included several soldiers. One soldier named Nikolai said that when they entered the woods, he felt that something was off. He had an overwhelming feeling that he should leave. He was feeling paranoid, and he thought that someone was watching him. However, he had been ordered to stay with the other soldiers overnight. Throughout the night, they heard noises, saw lights, and they saw the ghost of a girl who would walk through them. When she walked through them, they felt extremely cold. They also felt extreme heat that seemingly came out of nowhere. They also smelled smoke in the forest. What disturbed them even more so was that they heard a man screaming as though he was being burned alive by trees on fire, but they couldn't see any men or fire. The entire experience was very traumatic. All the soldiers sprinted out of the forest the next morning, and once they arrived in the Romanian capital, Bucharest, they were interviewed by National Security. Following the night in the woods, National Security kept tabs on the soldiers for a year following the incident. None of the men were allowed to contact each other. Several of them started growing gray hair only days after the incident. One soldier ultimately had to be institutionalized. Nikolai said that he was incapable of sleeping without the lights on and didn't go anywhere without a cross. The reports of these experiences in the forest are so shocking that it begs the question of what was happening there that could cause such phenomena. The region was settled during the Neolithic period at around 6,500 BC. It's the oldest settlement in Romania. Some have put forth the theory that the forest is haunted by peasants murdered there. Could the murdered peasants still be haunting the forest after all this time? Although we may never know what is truly occurring in these forests, it's clear that Little Red Riding Hood and Hansel and Gretel got off easy. Who knows what would have happened if these fairy tale characters had entered one of the forests on this list. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope you found it interesting. If you did find it interesting, please make sure you subscribe. We'll have a new video about the paranormal every week. If you just discovered this channel, please make sure you check out our other channel, Criminally Listed. We have over 325 videos featuring bizarre but true crime stories. You can find it at youtube.com/criminallylisted. We also have a podcast about cold cases that were eventually solved called Criminally Listed Presents Into the Killing. You can find it on Stitcher, Spotify, Amazon Music, and anywhere you find great podcasts. But that's all for today. Thanks again for watching.